the original book in a series, that first bite of your meal at your favorite restaurant, the oldest sibling. These are some of the things that set a high standard for anything that comes after. So what happens when there's a new monitor out that's an updated version of such a fantastic model? Can it meet the high standards that the old one set? Hey, I'm Nicholas from Rtings.com. Today we're going to review the MSI MPG 322URX. It's a newer version of the popular MSI MPG 322URX that came out last year. The new one has many of the same specs with a 4K 32-inch QD-OLED screen and a 240Hz refresh rate. And it competes against similar monitors like the Samsung OLED G8 and the Gigabyte FO32U2P. But does it meet the high bar, and is it worth getting? Starting with the design, it's a pretty straightforward monitor. It actually looks exactly like the old 321URX, so no changes there. It has some branding and RGB lighting on the back, and it isn't too heavy on the gaming look, so it fits into any type of environment. Plus it comes with an ergonomic stand that offers any common adjustment, but you can't rotate it into portrait mode on its stand. The base of the stand is pretty solid and it doesn't wobble easily. And there's a cutout for basic cable management too. Before we move on to the performance of this monitor, let's check out what it offers for inputs. It has two HDMI 2.1 ports and a DisplayPort input that supports 2.1 bandwidth at UHBR20 speeds. This is an upgrade from the older model, which was limited to DisplayPort 1.4 bandwidth. Besides that, it comes with USB 3.2 speed on all ports, which is faster than the original 321URX. It also includes a USB-C port with at least 90 watts of power delivery. Well, it's advertised to support up to 98 watts, but we don't have any devices that draw that much power over USB-C to confirm that. Besides that, it has a KVM switch that makes it easy to change between sources. With that done, we can now move on to the fun stuff, like its gaming performance. Because of its DisplayPort 2.1 bandwidth, you could actually reach the max 240Hz refresh rate without any DSC compression, though you'll need to use compression for HDMI connections. You could turn off DSC on the monitor, but that means you'll get a max refresh rate of 120Hz over HDMI instead. Besides that, it supports all common VRR formats to reduce screen tearing with any source. And like any OLED, it has a near instant response time for very sharp motion at any refresh rate. Any blur you get at low refresh rates is persistence blur, and unfortunately, it doesn't have a BFI feature to further reduce it. Also, it has very low input lag at any refresh rate, so gaming feels responsive. This helps with playing console games at those refresh rates. It's actually very slightly lower at 60 and 120 Hz with DSC off, but it's an extremely small difference. It can also take full advantage of both the Xbox and PS5 without any issues. It's not perfect for gaming though. Like all OLEDs, it has VRR Flicker that's most distracting when there's a big change in frame rates, and it has some screen flashes at other times. The best way to avoid these issues is by setting a frame rate cap, so there's less of a chance of big changes in frame rates. But gaming isn't only about motion and input lag. You also want high-end picture quality, and this monitor delivers for that. It has a near perfect contrast ratio with deep blacks next to bright highlights, and no blooming around bright objects. Another advantage when it comes to picture quality, especially for HDR content, is the range of colors that it displays. Colors are pretty accurate in the DCI-P3 and Rec 2020 color spaces, but of course, they're not perfect. It also makes these colors look very vivid and very dark without any issues. Just keep in mind that it looks best in dark rooms, because dark colors desaturate quickly in bright rooms. For example, blacks look purple when there's bright light on the screen, which is a typical issue of QD-OLEDs. And besides the colors, it also gets bright enough in HDR to make small highlights really pop against the rest of the image. But like any OLED, it can't keep this high brightness with large highlights, and it doesn't get bright enough to fight a ton of glare in a bright room. On the plus side, it has accurate PQ EOTF tracking, so it displays content close to the brightness that the creator intended. But it doesn't let all highlights get the brightest they could. If you're going to use the monitor in SDR, then it doesn't get as bright. It's fine if you have some lights around as it handles glare well. Just don't place it opposite a sunny window because then reflections can look too distracting. And like in HDR, colors are also very accurate in SDR. It has a dedicated sRGB mode that locks colors well to the sRGB color space, and there are only some minor inaccuracies with the white balance. Of course, if you're a content creator, you'll need to calibrate it for the best accuracy. Lastly, images and text look sharp thanks to its 4K resolution and high pixel density. You should know that text isn't as sharp as on a 32-inch 4K LCD monitor because of its triangular subpixel layout. There's some fringing around letters and even at the top and bottom edges of windows, but it's hard to see, and whether or not it bothers you changes from person to person. And of course, the biggest downside when it comes to using an OLED for something like work is the famous risk of burn-in. This can happen with constant exposure to the same static elements over time, like if you're only working on it all day, every day. But as long as you change things up, even by watching some videos in full screen between your reports, you shouldn't have too many issues. And it does have some settings to help reduce the risk, like pixel shift and a panel protect feature. It also runs a pixel refresh cycle after every 4 hours of use when you turn the monitor off or put it to sleep. So now that we know how it performs, is it worth getting? In short, yes, it's worth getting. We know that it's fantastic for PC and console gaming, plus it has remarkable picture quality and color accuracy. And it's even useful for some casual work or content creation, but it doesn't get very bright. But all that to say, yes, it's one of the best monitors you can get, and it meets the high bar that MSI set last year. There just isn't much to fault about it, and it has those extra features that make it well-rounded, like the USB 3.2 hub and the KVM switch. Even the DisplayPort 2.1 bandwidth makes it a nice upgrade over the older MSI 322URX. So if you don't want to use DSC for gaming at high refresh rates, then it's definitely worth getting. But it otherwise performs the same, so it might be worth waiting a bit to get it, because right now the new 322URX costs more than the older 321URX. This is normal in the tech world, so if you wait it out, the newer model should drop in price. No guarantees though. If you do want a 4K 240Hz QD-OLED with DisplayPort 2.1 that costs less right now, then check out the Gigabyte Aorus FO32U2P. It's actually pretty similar to the MSI and has many of the same features, including the UHBR20 transmission bandwidth. One advantage of the Gigabyte is how it gets brighter in SDR, so it's something to consider for a bright room. Other than that, the biggest difference between the two is the price. That's all for the MSI MPG 322URX. If you want more details on the monitor, check out our written review. The link is in the description below. Until next time, I'm Nicholas from Rtings.com, where we help you find the best product for your needs. Ciao.